So now it's the turn of fire, as we look a day into the Holy Week future, to an incident that takes place after Jesus is arrested. This comes from the 22nd chapter of the Gospel of Luke. Then they seized Jesus and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. But Peter was following at a distance. When they'd kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him in the firelight, stared at him and said, "This man also was with him." But Peter denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." A little later, someone else, on seeing him, said, "You also are one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Then about an hour later, yet another kept insisting, "Surely this man also was with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you're talking about." At that moment, while he was still speaking, the cock crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And Peter went out and wept bitterly. When compared to the other traditional elements, air, earth, and water, fire has a unique property. It cannot exist in isolation. It exists only by consuming something else in the flames. That can make it both a positive and a negative force. In a positive sense, it can burn up that which comes between who we are and who we can be. The image of a cleansing fire is not an unusual one in the Bible, although it can be a thing of fear, because to be cleansed by fire is not comfortable. But fire has negative connotations too, which is what we find in the story of Peter. The story opened with events from Thursday night, so essentially it comes after the story we'll tell tomorrow, but it's one of the church's set readings for Wednesday, and it fits with our theme. Jesus has been arrested, and while the other disciples have fled the scene, Peter has followed at a distance. It can be very cold in Jerusalem in the spring, especially at night, so the guards light a fire to bring warmth. Peter goes over and he stands around the fire with the crowd, and one of the women recognizes him as a disciple. If you've ever been in a group of people and someone accuses you of something that you thought you'd got away with, you'll know that feeling like ice that runs through you. And Peter is faced with a decision, whether to be honest and face the consequences that he promised Jesus he would face, or whether to do what Jesus had earlier predicted he would do and deny ever knowing him. Peter chooses to deny him. Somehow he gets away with it the first time. But then it happens again and again. And each time you can sense the escalation. In fact, in Matthew and Mark's retelling of the same story, they explain that Peter starts to swear and curse as the whole thing escalates. Throughout the Gospels, we've picked up that Peter is a man given to outbursts, and here that weakness takes hold as the fire of fear within him threatens to consume him. In the first of this Holy Week series, when we considered air, I spoke about the passionate gratitude of Mary and how Jesus affirmed it in the face of a colder, more logical response. But this isn't passion. This is a fire which is going to ruin everything that Peter has been trying to build within himself, everything that Jesus has been trying to help him to become. This is a destructive fire. I wonder what fires like this we kindle within ourselves. Aspects of our personality that could be good, but which have the potential to consume us. For me, it can be the desire to accomplish something which turns to frustration when something or someone gets in the way of my plans, which in turn then becomes anger, which, even though it can be kept bottled up, keeps lashing out. A few months ago, we saw the effects of this kind of fire in Australia, and how an uncontrolled fire like this can destroy everything. In the absence of water, the only way to stop a fire like this is with a fire break. The same is true within us. If we cultivate a relationship with the Holy Spirit, then she can speak in words we can feel but cannot hear. A fire break. For me, it happened last year whilst on sabbatical leave, when the Spirit broke into my thoughts about angry people and showed me the same things in myself, the same characteristics growing, and how it would, and indeed already was, affecting the relationships with those I loved the most. It was an effective fire break. It brought me up short and led to some heartfelt apologies and the beginnings of a slow change. Jesus does the same thing here to Peter. He's already warned Peter that he will deny him 3 times before the cock crows. And so that moment when the cock does indeed declare the Son to be coming, that's the fire break. Jesus hears it. And at that moment, Jesus, also being held in the courtyard, turns and looks straight at Peter. His piercing, dark Palestinian Jewish eyes snuff out Peter's fire immediately, as shame at what he's just done overwhelms him. Shame that Jesus knows he'll have to help Peter with in due course. But at least the fire will not escalate further. Jesus provided the divine fire break. So what then? What then do we struggle with? What threatens us? And do we look in the Lord's direction enough for him to help us with it? Have we genuinely learned the discipline of keeping the silences for long enough for the Spirit to build her fire breaks and stop our internal fires from consuming our most important selves?